Coming off of those two losses last week, I guess what is the overall vibe of the team? Like, how are y'all feeling, kind of knowing how last week went?
Um, I mean, I thought we practiced well yesterday. So, I don't think it's the time of year where you get into like how are you feeling today? It's kind of like here's what we do to move forward. I don't think in either of those games we didn't show that we're capable of playing with anyone in the country. Do we have to be better to win in those environments against those teams? Yes. Are there things that we have to get better at, whether it's ball screen D, whether it's setting better screens and rolling ourselves? Like, there's a lot of things that we can do better to give us a chance to win those games. But I don't think we feel like any of our goals aren't still attainable. So I don't think, we just, this time of year, you play the next game, you prepare the next scout, you say, okay, this is how UCF is different, and we've got to turn the page because there are very few similarities between UCLA, TCU, and UCF. And so, we might see the first big chunk of zone, that we've seen in months now, because, I think the last time we saw zone was Kansas, really. I mean, Houston played us some possessions, but ultimately, UCF mixes their defenses and plays a lot of zone. And so now all of a sudden, what does our zone attack look like? And do we do a good job of that in this game? So I think it's more that. It's more like press on. Let's keep getting better.
And you always talk about learning from losses. Do you have a better sense of, what this team is and kind of where you need to get better as you kind of enter this next stretch here?
Yeah, I mean, I liked what Aaliyah brought to the table. I thought that was a big jump for her. Not only offensive productivity, but getting up and picking Haley Van Lith, making plays, getting on the offensive glass. I thought she played with good energy, gave us another playmaker out there. So I thought that was a big positive. I thought the fact that we competed. I don't think there was ever a point that we didn't play hard. We didn't always play smart. We didn't always make the right decisions. We didn't always execute as well as we could. I thought we executed down the stretch, and I think we have to think that way from the tip. I think we got to execute at both ends a little better coming out of the gate, in particular in the first and the third, so we don't put ourselves in those situations. But and we have to get more out of Nettie. Like, we have to, regardless of opponent, regardless of we need more rebounding. And I think Sedona's a hard player to play against. Lauren Betts is a hard player to play against. But we got to find ways to roll behind them. We got to find ways to cut behind them, and not necessarily score on post-ups, but on the move better than we did, so that we can neutralize. We just weren't able to neutralize those positions over the last two games.
When you look at first quarter, fourth quarter, other than maybe a sense of urgency in the fourth, was there something different y'all did in the fourth as opposed to the first?
I think we aggressively hunted shots. I thought we pursued the ball better. I think but I also think TCU played really well, and I don't want to take away from the fact that they made shots. I mean, they're a good shooting team. But they just, when Maddie Connor banked in the three, you're like, okay, now what? Now, did we have to give her that shot? Probably not. But I thought they played really, really well. I think the difference in the first and the fourth quarter is they don't play a lot of players, and I think they wore down. Because I thought there were some really, we were turning them over in the first quarter. We just weren't capitalizing. We were taking them out of their first action. I thought, we didn't do a good job getting back to the roller. We didn't do a good job getting back on a contest to a box out. We didn't always finish plays well enough. But I don't think plan-wise, we weren't where we were supposed to be. But, I think the fact that we played more players and we just kept coming at them. Aaliyah was coming at them. She was fresher. Other than Sarah playing a lot of minutes, the guards were staying fairly fresh. So I thought our pressure turned up. And I think when you get tired legs, you're more apt to miss shots. Look at the Oklahoma State game. When you think about TCU controlled that for 3.5 quarters. And Oklahoma State just kept coming at them, and made plays late. And suddenly Sedona, I think the biggest difference between our game and Oklahoma State is Sedona didn't take jump shots against us. A couple, but, she rolled to the rim way more than she usually does. She's more apt to pick and pop and play to pitches. And I thought she put a lot of pressure on our defense by rolling to get to the offensive glass, to get rotation and help side. And so because she rolled, she put pressure on our defense all night long.
And it may be just understandable that it's taken her a little while to adjust to your system, what y'all do. But Aaliyah, was this about the right timing, or what have you seen from her to take that next step?
Gosh, I don't know. It's not that suddenly I saw him practice. In fact, I was questioning a little bit. Is she trying to fit in too much? Is she, because when you have someone that's capable of being dominant with the ball in her hands, I appreciated her patience. I appreciated, her wanting to fit in and working with her teammates and be an elite teammate. But, I was starting to press her on, come on, it's time to show the things that you can do. And so, in the best possible sense, it doesn't mean not be a good teammate. It doesn't mean don't run a play. I need you to understand what we do, but also in the flow of what we do, you're getting touches. What are you doing with those touches? And what are you doing with them in practice so that I know you're going to make those plays in the game? And so that's I think her greatest challenge right now is really raising the level of what she's doing in practice, so that that's what I think's going to happen in the game is what happened. I don't fear that she's going to confidently take an open shot, but I want to know that she's going to play downhill and make the right read, that she's going to be in the right spot at the defensive end, that she can amp up and guard the ball really aggressively without fouling, And so if you look at her career statistics, a big reason why her minutes were limited at Florida was foul trouble. She has a hard time when she's guarding the ball, not wanting to take the ball from you. And so, kind of having that balance of, I'm going to sit on it, I'm going to get one. But there's a time and a place to sit down and just not cheat a screen and actually wait, get over it at the right time so you don't get rejected. So I think from that perspective, I want her to really raise the level of her practice, because I think that's going to help her in the game. And I think the hardest part about this time of year is you're so driven by scouting report practices, whether it's offensive execution or defensive execution, that you get away from just spending a bunch of time just kind of battling, everything is, here's how we're guarding this. Okay, here's what's going to be there. Yesterday was all zone offense work. Doesn't mean we won't see man, but, we've worked against man for 6 weeks now, but we've probably done zone work 2, maybe 3 times in 6 weeks. We just haven't seen it since we've been in conference play. So, from that perspective, it's different. Now you're taking corner threes or punching a gap and kicking it or post feeding. You're not in a ball screen. You're not playing to the paint. So it looks different practice to practice. That was a really long answer to that, but.
With the injuries that y'all have had as y'all get deeper into conference play, are you going to be, do you feel like your rotation is set, or are you going to be asking more from Abraham and Nels going forward? Nels.
Yeah, I think some of it depends on foul trouble. I think we go deeper, obviously, at that position. I think with Kayla, it's not complicated to me with freshmen. If you give me reason in practice to believe I can play you, then I'm going to play you. And if you don't, I won't. You know, like it's no, if I don't have to, I'm not going to. And so I thought leading up to Utah, even though Madison was hurt, she had been stacking really good practices. And I think that's what she has to continue to do. If Kayla Nelms wants to get on the floor, it's stacking good practices. It's every practice is like a game for her, because Nettie's not going to be in foul trouble every game. Like part of why Kayla played more minutes, both against Utah and UCLA, was foul trouble. So Kyla's not capable of playing 8 straight minutes. It's just not. She never has, and she's not in that kind of shape to be effective. So, you know, that gave Kayla minutes. Now, Kayla's different than Kyla. So depending on an opponent and what we're getting, if they're equally working hard in practice, I'm going to lean on what I think gives us the best chance to be productive in that game. Do we need a pick and pop post? You know, like do we need a more defensive mind rim protector? Like what are we looking for? But I certainly think they both will play and both have opportunity to play because of Madison's injury.
In your coaching career, how have you spoken with your team about avoiding, and maybe you don't have to, but how have you spoken with your team about avoiding letdowns from a high emotional intensity game to the next game?
I think, you know, part of being an elite team is being motivated even when you don't feel like it. You know, I think that's the difference between good teams and great teams. Like some days it's not easy to get up and do your job, but if you do it and you do it well, that's what gives you a chance to grow. And so, you know, I think in these situations, you know, we've lost 2 in a row. Like there's no gimme in our league. And so it's about, you know, Houston beat Oklahoma State. Like you can always like point to, okay, here's a team that hadn't gotten a win in conference play. If you take anyone for granted, I think Satia has talent. I thought they did a really good job in the portal. I think their freshmen are good. You know, I think they've had injuries, they've had, you know, situational stuff, but it's not that they don't have talent. You know, they were down their 3 leading scorers in their last game against Iowa State. So I don't even know, watching that game, like, is that who we're playing? Or are we playing the team that played Oklahoma State the game before that? You know, I don't know who will be available. Will Caitlin Peterson be available? Will Emily Rodriguez be available? You know, I don't know. So, I mean, to me, it's more about, for us, what are the actions that they run, and are we prepared to be elite in our defensive execution in those actions? Because regardless of who's in it, one player might be a little bit better, but are we executing like our coverages? And then if they're mixing zones, are we poised, and do we take care of the ball against their zones and get good shots? So, you know, it's not that I'm not motivational, but I'm also a very workman-like, let's show up, put our hard hat on, and figure out how to win the next game, because we still control our own destiny. Like we've got games in front of us that will impact all the things we want, you know, whether it's a conference championship or seeding or ranking or whatever, like, but those games don't matter if we don't win the one in front of us. And so I think that's the mentality. That's what got us on the win streak before the UCLA game, and it's where we've got to go back to.
You kind of touched on UCF there. What do you expect to see? I know where you're talking about the players, but maybe more the style. And do you know Satia that well?
I do know. You know, most people probably don't know, but Satia was recruited and coached by my husband. So she's an Arkansas kid, and my husband Tom obviously knows her very, very well. That's why I met Satia. I mean, and you know, I tried to keep Satia when I got this job. I worked really, really hard to try to get her to stay. I thought she was a big part of the recruiting success here, and elite human. And, you know, happy for her that a year after she left here, she was a head coach. So obviously she made a good decision. So yeah, I mean, Satia is an elite human, and I think they've done a good job recruiting. And I think they play hard. I don't know. I mean, I think their identity defensively was pressure man to man. And I think with some of the injuries and things that have happened to them, the players in and out of the lineup, they've had very few players that have played in every game. Like even if they've played 10 players and most of them have played 12 or more games, they still have had people in and out of the lineup. So the lineup has changed a lot. So I think that the greatest challenge is just not knowing. Caitlin Peterson basically put a 30-piece on us last year. So, we know like she's capable of going crazy, if we're not in her space and give her easy stuff downhill. And once she gets going, she's scoring from everywhere. She was hitting threes. She's going to play to that mid-range kind of float game. But I think, I think they were playing around Hannah Gusters and now with her, not on the roster, like they don't have that presence. And so, now I think they become a little more guard heavy in their attack, playing downhill, using their speed, athleticism. Brown can get to jump shots. Like they have players that can score.
With the expanded Big 12 and all these new schools coming in and everything that's changing, I'm curious, how has your recruiting strategy, changed? Has it evolved over your 4-year span here with the new people coming in and some of these new schools getting big top recruits and all that? Has it changed at all?
I don't think it's changed. We still know what we like. We're always going to start with Texas. I know our roster doesn't reflect that. But, certainly Texas is an elite girls basketball, high school, state. And so that's a priority. I think what's changed the most in recruiting is the unlimited transfers. That changes everything. And so, we started with the one-time transfer exception came through right after I was hired. And then, a year later, that disappeared. So I think that's the greatest challenge in recruiting. I always say, like, the way our recruiting has been impacted by the portal is we still want to recruit high school kids, but we don't have an A list and a B list. Like, we have an A list. And if we get players on our A list, we're really, really happy. But we're not going to a B list because you can get portal kids that are better than a B list, But it doesn't mean we don't want to build around high school kids, but we want to build around elite players like a Bella and a Bugs that you've seen us play to and through over the course of their career. And so, so that I would say that's the biggest thing. And then I think the nature of NIL and, wanting to figure out how do we recruit in this space of NIL and, and so you start to go, okay, like maybe we should open the doors to international recruiting to balance recruiting out, because the market is insane. And until the market resets, like we're playing a game that we don't know where it's going from month to month. And so I think that's been the greatest challenge in recruiting is just the ever-changing landscape of the portal, NIL, what's next? Now it's the House settlement. What's that going to look like? What is that going to mean? Will Title IX impact it? Will Title IX not impact it? There are just all these factors. And I think some coaches act like they're real sure, but I don't think they are because I don't think you can be sure as the climate changes. That's a really deep question and answer, but
well, I guess does your professional experience now?
I wish it did. I wish it did. Here's what
translate?
I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you about NIL, where my professional experience is impacted. I understand marketing. I understand market value. I understand how in the free agency market, how teams will try to drive up the cost of a player that they don't think they can even get just to make you pay more for that player. So there are those games that I'm well aware of, but I also know that in the pros, we were working off a hard cap. So, in a lot of ways, the pros is almost more like the old school system when players stayed places 4 years, because you knew every year we've got 4 kids that are going to graduate. We're going to need 4 kids in the 2026 class. And here's our list. These are the kids we're going to go after. And if we don't go after them, this is our backup plan, you know? And that's what you do in free agency. You have a cap, you know, like, here's my priority target. I've got players on rookie contracts that are 4 years. I had 3-year signees. I had 2. You had 6 protected contracts. Like, you had variables, but everyone had the same. And so you almost planned the way you did with old school recruiting, where it was a 4-year model that was both position based and numbers based. And so I think with collectives and no cap and unlimited free agency for all players at all moments, like, it's like, well, how do you plan for that? You know, and so, you know, at a time when, like, I've been in college sports where I've been a part of low major, mid major, gotta raise money for your program to function. But now it's the same at our level. You have to raise money to function in the NIL space. And so, you know, we can't do anything without our donors. Like, we just can't, you know, because there is no such thing as a non-NIL package deal. So yeah, it's wild. It's wild. It's why you're seeing coaches retire, because it's not that they don't want to coach. It's not that they don't want to see players get paid. I do not believe that. I think it's just the nature of the system and not understanding the system or how the system is being played. I don't think there's a lot of coaches out there that don't want to see these players be well taken care of, you know, and get what they deserve. I don't believe that. I just think we want to know what the rules are.